you work hard for your money. So it's only right that you're hyper vigilant and you do the right thing by your money. Joining us on a discussion on how to be smart with your finances and liberating yourself financially is attorney Roberta Saphire from Boston, and also joining her is the financial organizer Camille Barron, also from Boston.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, for coming. So when it comes to one's money and the law, you are the ladies to call. Okay, you run a website called Your Money, The Law, Your Money, and You, and also it is a TV program at Sharon Community Television, which you have been doing it for 9 years.
Right.
So let's start with the simplest of questions, such as how did you two meet? And what sparked this interest of going out there and helping people getting their finances right?
We love that question because it instills such nice memories that from 9 years ago, and I always wanted a legal program, and
I had planned on doing a show about finances, managing finances.
Okay. So then you came together and you said, well, with your finances and your interest in law, we can make this happen.
Right.
and what happened was it just clicked. And we did a few shows, and then people would email us and call us and say, boy, you two are great together. And before you know it, people started asking for other towns and wanted to sponsor us in other towns. What are we in, 24, 25 towns now?
Including Boston.
Including
Wow.
Boston. And we do such topics besides financial literacy. I know you were interested in the
Yeah, in the
financial
topics
literacy,
that you yes.
which we're really big in. I think 8 years ago, we did one of the first live, it was called Live at the Library, and we had a panel of financial experts. And then we started the first Brighten Up Club for financial literacy at the high school, and we were instrumental in, the state of Massachusetts has, what is it called?
Credit for life.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And we were instrumental in bringing that to Sharon High, and I guess part of that is how you found us, because we're really out there, not just on high school kids, but for all ages. And the latest thing is in women in finances and retirement. We brought a few things. We brought the Make a Budget
Absolutely.
that we hand out. We do a lot of hands out. One of the things I want to say is we do police officers are our friends. Cyberbullying, which can be part of finances, like the little kid saying, "Give me your money." How not to. Well, isn't that true too? How not to let people. It's not just little kids that take money from other little kids. It's adults.
I have invited you here to talk about retirement. And the main question is, can I afford to retire? And if so, at what age? Yeah, and people are afraid that whatever they're doing, it's not going to be enough.
Right.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty of retirement, where should the conversation begin? What are the right questions, the right first questions to ask?
The first thing that people have to do, getting back to this sheet that we provide, is you have to start with knowing where you are today.
Okay.
And a lot of times people don't even know that. Because you hear all the time about people not having enough money to retire, and naturally they get scared. And that actually makes it less likely that they're going to take this picture of where they are today, because they're afraid of what they're going to find.
Yes.
And we say, don't be afraid, because there will be a way to do it. Maybe catching up from things you might not have done yet.
Yeah.
But you have to start someplace, and let's face the reality, whatever that is.
Yeah, you mentioned to start someplace and to just outline your finances. I've spoken to my mom, and she might not like this, that I'm mentioning her. But, when I said that I was going to have you ladies here to talk about retirement and helping people straighten out their finances, she said, it's too late for me. Is there such a thing as it is too late for me?
Is she working now?
She's okay, she's retired, but she's in a very tight budget, and I think, it's driving her crazy.
Well, the thing is, everybody thinks it's too late, especially when you're over 50. But the first thing that I recommend people do is sit down with a financial advisor, someone that you trust, and just lay it all out. And a financial advisor will actually walk you through the steps. And maybe it's not too late. Maybe she can still manage somehow to make her be able to retire and feel confident about it.
I know people who say they never expected to live as long as they did, so they would have done their
And
money.
you know, that's another thing. We're living longer than
Thank
before,
God.
you know, which is good. It's good. You can be able to see your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. But the question is, can we afford to live longer?
Well, you know, today, one of the biggest risks in retirement is outliving your money.
Absolutely.
And so there are new financial products now, more than ever, that attempt to extend your income over a period of time.
But you have to be careful of the scams that are out there. For where people can go to, too, is the IRS has a list every year of the 10 most common scams. But there are so many scams out there, people who want to talk you into a good investment. You got to watch out. If it's too good to be true, it usually is. Retirement plans that aren't really retirement plans. That's why you have to go to a trusted financial advisor and a trusted attorney. And sometimes people think that, oh, well, I'll put my house in my name and my son's or this or that jointly, and when I die, we'll avoid probate, and he'll make sure the other kids get it. Doesn't work that way.
The other big risk, because we are living longer, is as we age, we're more likely to develop conditions where over time prevent us from being able to be independent. And we might have to consider living someplace else. We might have to consider having people come in and stay with us. We might have to consider at some point even a nursing home. And
How about reverse mortgages?
that's
They're good and they're not good.
Yeah,
You have to be
everything is that way.
you have to be very careful on everything.
So where do you go to get the right information, to be safe, to know that whatever you're planning is the right way to go about things?
It clearly is nothing but first seeing a trusted financial advisor.
Right.
Now there is a new sort of standard today in financial advice, and it's called the fiduciary standard. And what that means is the standard that had existed all along was that the advisor was required to always do what's in the best interest of the consumer. But the fiduciary standard even raises that more. And in fact, they are required to do that, even if it contradicts what's in their own best interest. So that means, for example, that many advisors, obviously, they sell products. They sell retirement plans, which is fine. But these fiduciaries are required, even if they want to, say, give you a plan because maybe they're going to make more of a commission on it, or if it's somehow not suited perfectly to you, but it might suit them, that's off the table. They can't. So the point I'm making is that you have to preferably work with one who is a fiduciary, and certainly get referrals from other clients of theirs. You can't be too careful when it comes to that. That's the place to start.
Yes.
And then along with that, the part about the estate planning is making sure that your assets are going to be serving you and your family well while you're still alive.
But
and then after
protected.
you pass,
But
they have to-
protected.
they have to
You
be
have to protect them.
Okay. Now, Americans are working tirelessly. I mean, I myself included, I work more than one job to just make ends meet. You know, you pay your bills, but also the second job is to have a little something to go into the bank. So it's not that Americans are lazy. People are doing whatever they can do. You know?
That's because I corrected that. It's not just to put stuff in the bank, but they're interested. There's more things to do out there. There's more recreation.
Absolutely.
And they want to have that second house and the boat and this and that. And that's why that Credit for Life fair is good. It awakens, or tries to awaken people that, well, if you choose this career, you can't have the Ferrari and you can't have this. And you just, the next thing is to worry about, we haven't brought up, is the credit cards. Watching out about credit cards.
And we'll get to those, but with the point of people working more than one job, some of them within 3 jobs at one time, yet majority feel that they cannot afford to retire someday. Where do you feel the disconnect is? Are we spending more than we should, or is it the wages are not compatible to today's living styles? Or
To have,
Well,
especially if you have girls.
Everybody has to retire at some point. Either the decision is made for you or you make the decision. So it's unavoidable that you have to plan for what's going to happen. And to the best of our ability, we have to remain in control. And again, I can't overemphasize, but you have to be able to sit down with someone who can really advise you as to what's possible for you and what you might have to change in order to retire.
also, you mentioned credit cards. You know, you can build your credit by getting a credit card, using it, and so forth. I have maxed out my credit card once, and that's a lesson I will never forget. So tell us how people can stay in that tiny, thin line between building your credit card and not.
Well, they have to understand that they're paying interest on interest. That's why it never goes. These people who figure they're going to pay $15 a month because it says you could pay $10, $15 a month. Okay, so now you're paying, and what are they, 18% now? And it's on and on and on, and that's how they never get out of it.
We talked about credit card, but we also, people are wondering about Social Security. There is a myth out there, rumors that Social Security may be going away someday. To my understanding, I don't think it will totally go away. It's just because we live longer, there are more people on Social Security than those contributing in it. So what other things can people do instead of just all eyes on Social Security? What else can we do?
Well, first of all, about the Social Security going away, there's no question that Social Security and Medicare, at some point, there's going to have to be some modifications made to it. I don't know what it will be. Maybe it'll be an income standard, but whatever it is, I don't think we'll see them go away because we would have a revolution in this country if we did. So I don't think they're going to go away.
Absolutely.
But what can people do? Again, it's a matter of figuring out how much you need to live on, which the budget helps.
Yes.
And then how much you think you're going to need to live on when you retire. It used to be the 80% rule. It used to be whatever you need now, you just take 80% of that, but that's not true anymore. Because first of all, if people are fortunate enough to be healthy, they want to be able to travel and those sorts of things. And on the other hand, if they are not, healthcare takes a huge portion of their expenses. So either way, you have to be prepared that it could even be more.
Better.
You know, the families, and I've spoken to a few people, and they, like a single mom and others, a full family, and they will say, we are trying to manage our money. We are following a specific budget, and we are working as hard as we can, but still at the end of the day, we just do not have that extra, to put aside. What do you say? I mean, there must be something to do out there.
Well, see,
can you invest? I mean, some people talked about investing in real estate and so forth. How likely is that?
Every situation is different, and I'm not a financial advisor. I mean, I help people with sort of organizing their finances and how to approach what you're asking or anything else that's a goal. But when it comes to financial advice for each situation, that's why you have to have somebody who can really focus on your specific situation. Because I always think no matter what the question is, there is always an answer. We may not know it right away when we first ask the question, but there is always. In every walk of life, there is an answer. We just haven't discovered it yet.
One of the first rules, and I remember this as a kid, you don't buy something that you really don't have the money for. In other words, don't say, oh, well, I'll put it on the charge card, because you're going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay at the end of the month. So don't buy anything that you can't afford. Never mind, you really don't need it.
Would you say education is a big factor? Like, we need to go back to school. We need to get that master's degree, that PhD.
Well, not that, but
general education.
What we have learned in our 9 years of doing this is that there's a huge education gap as low as middle schools and high schools, where they learn all these topics, they learn all these subjects, which are important, but they don't learn about managing finances.
And how do you sell managing finances to young students, young kids such as
you have to sell it to the school committees.
Oh, okay.
That's who you sell it to. You sell it to them, and you have to let them know that it's not going to cost them anything. And you do like we do. We volunteer this, volunteer that to get them in there. And there are a lot of banks out there that are happy to help too, especially when you know you're not charging them either. They'll give you printouts, or they'll have people come. We did that. What was it? The kids did it. The Brighten Up for financial fitness, and we had investment, taxes, college counselor, and it was funny. They were more interested in the taxes than the college and things like that. But and then you get a teacher, and the teacher was willing to give the kids a good grade on part grade if they participated. And they're the advisors. So you get the school in it, and the school will get to the kids.
And taxes are ugly. I mean, you work so many hours, and the more you work, the more taxes they take. That just,
When we did this, what was called the Financial Reality Fair, the exercise really was essentially this.
Okay.
It took a different form, but each of the students, and they were required to go. A half day was set aside for them. And they had to fill out a budget. They were assigned one of 4 careers, or they could choose one of 4 careers that had an income. And then they had to choose from all the major living expenses like rent, car, clothing, groceries. They had choices. They went around from one table to the other, and they had 3 choices of whether they're going to buy the expensive car, a used car, or even not have one. And when they finished, they had to come to what was called a reality check. And if those expenses exceeded their salary, then they had to go back and make changes, because they weren't going to get out unless they did.
And there was that wheel of life too.
The wheel of life, where these unpredicted things happen. Maybe they got, maybe the furnace broke, or they had to get a new car. But good things too. They won the lottery.
They won the lottery.
Family expanded.
Furniture.
So and it was only by that, by actually experiencing it, that they were able to get the light bulb went on.
Absolutely.
You can't just tell them.
Yeah, I remember I tell my mom, when I was younger, when she used to buy me my cell phones, they won't last even for a month. It will break, it would get lost.
You lose
Until
it,
the
you
day I
drop
start
it.
paying for my own cell phone.
Right.
I've been having that same cell phone for I don't know how many years now. So it clicks when it's your money on the line.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It's like the thermostat on the heat when the kid goes out on his own. Hey, turn the thermostat down.
Absolutely. I used to think my dad just wanted me to be cold, but until now, I my own, I will wear all the sweatpants I have.
Caveat to that too, and that is there's so much information around, and people might read an article, or they might see something on TV, and they're only getting a little clip of the reality. So they hear, oh my God,
That's why
all
they
these
have
people
the
are not going
reality
to
here.
retire, and they get scared. And that's really not the best way. I mean, it's good to trigger thoughts that you want to ask, but it's really not the complete picture.
Absolutely.
So you have to try to temper that, and not let that be your sole source of information. Getting back to the initial question of how people can know if they can retire, and it isn't just retirement, it could be anything. Maybe they want to buy a house, maybe they want to have enough money to send their kids to college. So this is the financial pyramid. And what it is you establish a foundation, and each one of these blocks fits atop the other. So the first 2 elements is you have to know where you are today. So that's, again, we talked about a budget. You just have to have an idea, and a good idea, of how much money you're taking in and how much money you're spending. If there's a deficit, then something has to be tweaked a little bit. Secondly, once you have that idea, you look at your day-to-day money management. How are you spending the money? Are you spending too much on you're going to the grocery store, that's something that's a need, but maybe not everything in the grocery store is. Going out to eat every weekend, maybe based on your status right now, you can't. So it's a question of you're looking at something that is reality, and you just have to make some adjustments. You have to see what it is that you're doing and what could possibly be changed. Okay, so that starts with today. And then we kind of look back, or look ahead, I should say, at the long-term goal. You mentioned retirement, and as I said, it could be that, it could be anything. It's a long-term goal. It's not going to be something that you're going to do right away. So if we use retirement as an example, so you have the point of where you are today, and you have where you want to be. And the question is, how do I get there? What do I need to do? And what happens is, typically, if you're working with a financial advisor, which I do recommend, that you try to get a financial snapshot of what it would take to live when you are in retirement. It might be a projection of what you're spending today, what things would you not need anymore. You don't need the transportation to work, for example. You might not need to buy as many clothes because you're not going to be worried about business attire, those sorts of things. And then on top of that, we have the shorter term goals. It could be taking some vacations, it could be hobbies, it could be wine hobby, it could be maybe taking a big trip to Europe. But those are shorter term goals, and again, you have to plug in what is it going to take to be able to fulfill those goals. And then, actually this was here, I should have put that there first, but it's another important element no matter where you put it. Risk management. And what that means is you have to look at the things that could happen, particularly the bad things. So somebody might be very healthy today, and lo and behold, they get into a very serious accident, and now they can't walk. So what are they going to do? They're going to need more health care.
Or one of their investments could go pooey.
That's another type of
That's your risk management.
The money that they
That's
put away,
fantastic.
it could be something happens, maybe the market drops significantly, so their advisor will tell them, we're going to be balancing out your portfolio, so you're going to have some low-risk investments that will sustain you during those ups and downs of the market. Any type of risk. You have a home, you live in a home, and maybe somebody gets, you have a pool and maybe somebody drowns, God forbid. You have to have the right protections in place so that won't happen, but you also have insurance. You have to have insurance that's going to cover those things. And that is called the umbrella policy, the personal umbrella policy, that picks up once your homeowner's liability insurance or your car, depending on what the accident was, you have to have another layer of protection, they call it the personal umbrella, because it picks up the excess. If you don't do that, then if you don't have that and something serious happens, you could lose everything. That's that important, and it's very inexpensive to have. And then lastly, estate planning. That again gets into what you want to happen when you die. And it isn't only about when you die, but even while you're still alive. You have to have a plan, say, of where your assets will go, to whom, once you die. But you also have to consider things like taxes. There's estate taxes, but there's also taxes when you transfer, say if you have an IRA, and you transfer it over to a Roth IRA, which is post-tax, the Roth IRA. So people have to be prepared to pay some taxes now, so that when they retire, they won't have to pay the taxes on those investments. There's a lot of things, like if you have children, how are you going to divide the assets that you do have? There's the long-term care problem, and that is another area where estate planning comes in. Some people may have a long-term care policy so that if they have to go to a nursing home, they have insurance to help them. Because many people are under the misguided impression that Medicare pays for that, and it doesn't. It doesn't pay for long-term care once you're on what they call custodial care. So if you can't get a long-term care policy because maybe you have pre-existing conditions or it's just too expensive, then you can sort of cover that risk by having certain kinds of trusts that will protect your assets in the event that you have to go to a nursing home. It'll protect your assets so that if you have to go on Medicaid, because you do have to spend down your assets, certain ones will be protected. So this is a quick view, but the point is that nobody can be an expert on all of them, and if you can find, at the very least, a good financial advisor and an estate planning attorney, those become the linchpins of the plan. And if you have somebody that is good and is trustworthy, they should be able to help you to reduce the expenses in some fashion to whatever is required to help you get to that long-term goal.
So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
To my viewers, thank you so much for joining us in another episode of The Official Report here at WCTV Studio with me, your host, Queen Banda. To thank our guest again, I had finance organizer Camille Barron and also attorney Roberta
Saphire.
Thank
Diamonds,
you so
rubies,
much.
and sapphires.
I will never forget that.
Thank
So
you.
thank you, ladies, for coming in. They were here to talk about how to liberate yourself financially. Have a wonderful day.